What's up, brother? Feeling amazing, man. Feeling amazing. Where you at?
Man, now I'm over at family's house. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing super great. I'm working to pick you up on my other mic, so you're gonna have to like talk loud. So,
Okay.
hold on one second. What's up? Wait. All right, cool. So, Chanelli, let me bring Chanelli here. All right. It's going to be a great podcast because today I have on an amazing brother. He ran for alderman, was super duper fabulous, father of 5, activist, and I would be remiss if I didn't right away just talk about what's happening in Minneapolis because I lived there for 10 years. My son lives there. I have tons of family there. So this really it's hurting my heart right now seeing what's happening in Minneapolis. It's not cool. It's just not been cool because this is not the first and last time that this has happened, but this definitely it hurts my heart the most that this is happening because it's happening in the middle of a pandemic. It's a fucking pandemic going on. People are dying, trying to stay alive just in general. And then this happens. So I'm like hurting right now, man. Before we get into we're gonna talk about as far as what needs to happen. Just tell her listen.
I got a hotspot. I'm sorry, say it one more time.
Can you hear me, brother?
Yeah, I can hear you. A little. I'm trying to make sure that my internet is all the way together. Give me 1 second.
We're learning as we go here. So much technology nowadays.
I'm not sure.
I got you cracking. Okay. All right.
Okay, I'm coming with you. Give me 1 second, sorry, y'all.
No, you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. We're learning as we go.
Learning as we go. Technology at its finest.
So what we're talking about today is just the brutality that just keeps transpiring, specifically like the black males. This really has to come to an end. Whatever and come to an end. Not that it's gonna stop today, but I mean, my heart hurts for a lot of different reasons because first and foremost, it really hurts because I have tons of family members that I have tons of family members. I lived in Minneapolis for 10 years. I have tons of family and friends up there. My son lives in Minneapolis. So, yeah, that's hurting. Hey, Chanel, let's call Joseph on his phone, and then the camera doesn't seem to be working today. Let's just bring him in through the app.
Okay.
Please. So I was trying to do a Facebook split screen, but that's not happening and working. So yeah, so Minneapolis, lived there for 10 years. It's a beautiful place, amazing place. But just watching that video yesterday, that hurt my heart. And just for people, if they're ever confused of like why we're doing these things, I don't dog train if I'm not feeling great. I don't dog train if there's something that's on my mind. And this has been like super duper heavy on my mind. I can't even man, I look like crap. My My eyes are all messed up. This has been like up all night, like contemplating because my son lives there. So this has been like super duper sad. I'm super sad, and our country should be sad by what happened yesterday. It's super ridiculous. It's more than sad. It's terrible. That's part of why we ran for alderman. In 2019, when I ran for alderman, I was walking down the street in front of my own house, and 3 police officers threw me up against the fence to the point where I was like laughing. I was like, I said, "Hey, I'm the alderman." And they stepped back. I pulled a business card out of my hand, handed it to them. And they literally, it wasn't even a business card, me promoting that I wanted to be alderman. And they grabbed the card and they jumped. They literally ran into their car. It's enough to where I ran to the street to see them pull off. But every year, I personally get stopped like 3 times a year. Personally. Whose phone is that?
Soriano,
Yeah.
you want to try Facebook again? He said he has a hotspot.
Oh, is
We
that
can do
what
that.
it was?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see.
Make sure your audio is on Facebook also. I'm not sure if people could hear you. Can they?
Yeah, they should. Allow your viewers to request. Whose phone is that? Is that your phone?
Yours? Mine? No.
No. Okay.
Maybe he's trying to call in. Happy Hump Day Wednesday, guys. Hey, Denise. So
Okay.
Joseph is on. You see him? He's on popping.
Hey, Joseph.
Hey, what's going on?
Here we go.
Perfect.
This is perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have Alderman Candidate Joseph Williams. How you doing, brother?
Man, I'm doing good this morning. How you feeling?
I feel terrible. I feel terrible. I don't feel a happy camper because of like what has happened and transpired in Minneapolis. Before we get into that, I just want to you're a fabulous brother. I met you on the campaign trail. It was super duper amazing. I ran for alderman because I wanted to change my community for situations like this. You ran for alderman because of situations like this. We did it in the middle of our regular lives, being fathers, being businessmen. So just tell the world a little bit about you before we go into diving the next 45 minutes. Just this atrocity that happened yesterday.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, well, I'm Joseph Williams, everyone. I am a father to 5 beautiful children. I have a amazing wife that supports everything I do. And beyond the family part, community, I consider myself to be more of a community organizer. Sometimes I put slash activist there as well. But I love organizing and bringing people together for great causes. But meanwhile, I've also started a nonprofit called the Mr. Dad's Fathers Club that helps get fathers more actively involved in their children's lives. So we try to get fathers to come out to CPS schools and we read books and we mentor children. We do a dads and scoops where in the summertime we do scoops of ice cream and read books. We do our Father's March out at Ogden Park where we usually have like at least about 200 families just out there and it's a peaceful day. So we try to do things within that way. And I love doing the work with my nonprofit. And I just think that's a big piece to any child's life is having that good male model. It don't matter if it's not just a father, but just having someone there to help give you some type of guidance. And I started in a grammar school. So I try to catch the kids as early as possible because if you can catch them early, you have a great chance to help mold them for the future. So I try to catch them at an early age. And beyond the non-profit work that I do and all of the philanthropy work that I'm doing out in the community from giving back and trying to give masks away to protect our communities and do all these different type of things, also serve on my children's local school council and their PAC at the school, where I'm actually chair of the PAC, and that's the Parents Advisory Council that I get a chance to be chair over. And we've been doing some amazing things at Beasley Academic Center. So right now, Beasley is getting a multi-million-dollar playground built in the back of the school right now, and that's
Nice.
because of the parents and the community and us going down to Board of Education and asking for more for our children. So, um,
Mm.
but I don't want to talk so much about me at all. I do a few things. I can't think of all of them. My mind be racing sometimes, but mainly overall, I just love doing anything positive and anything where I can help change a life and affect people as we continue to just all grow with one another, And I think the biggest piece is having something to leave back for our children and giving them an equal opportunity almost to just live this same life that we live in and putting things in
Mm-hmm.
place that can help make that happen.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you for taking the time, because I know you're super busy. But then part of why we met, because we both ran for alderman. Part of why I ran for alderman and put myself through that hell, but most importantly, put my family through that hell and put my friends through that hell. I mean, running for an elected official position, and I know I see Denise online, and any elected official that is listening or that has made it, it is more than a notion. It's one of the most intense things that you could possibly do. It was the most intense thing that I did. I saw one person that was one of my campaign assistants. He was murdered while we were campaigning
Oh God.
by a drive-by. Um, so I know
Wow.
about 3 people just last year alone that have been murdered in North Lawndale, and it has to stop being the norm of these killings, because depending upon where you're from, you live in a pandemic. In North Lawndale, there's one grocery store, Leamington's, that no one goes to because it's ratchet in there. There's no restaurants or bars or so. Shut down for us, and we live in a shutdown. I'm 45 years old, and things have been shut down and messed up for quite some time there. So we've been living in some form of a pandemic. But this atrocity that happened yesterday in Minneapolis, for me, just super duper hurt my heart, because I love Minneapolis. I love Minnesota. I went to college in St. Peter, Minnesota, graduated from there. My son now is attending Gustavus Adolphus College in St. Peter, Minnesota. And I have tons of family. I was there for 10 years. 10 years of my life is Minnesota. So to see that happen there anywhere, but that atrocity of seeing a human being, forget black, white, it doesn't even matter, but seeing the atrocity of a human being, life destroyed, and everyone sat back and watched. Everyone sat back and watched. And that's where I wanted to bring you on today, brother. Talk about what can we do. One, let's address what happened, but then 2, what can we do to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Oh, we lost our brother.
Did we lose him?
He's he needs to call back in. Something must have happened to his
Nope.
line.
I'm still here, you
So,
guys. Can you hear me?
Okay.
oh, you still there? Okay.
Okay.
Yep, I'm still here. Sorry.
So I don't know if you heard what I said. I said, so now what we're going to
I
talk
heard
about is
you.
what can we do? Okay.
Yeah. So when we're talking about action or a solution, which I don't. I mean, that's a pretty good one. So I think it's always something that we can do, right? I think one piece of it is making sure that we, again, policy or legislative uh, laws passed to help us with situations between police and community. And I think we also have to look at police contracts, and we have to look at how do we attack certain things to really hold them accountable. Right now, there is no accountability in the law for the police. So they can come to your community, harass you, and do anything they want to do and kill you, and they can still get away with it. They still not even in jail within 24 hours. They just getting fired within the 24 hours, and there's still no real accountability behind what they do. So how do we go now and say, let's look at this contract that says when you murder someone, not only are you relieved of duties, you are automatically getting locked up like a regular person until your day comes or something else in place to really help with that. So that's like looking at it on like the law perspective and looking at how can we put things in place for that part of it. But also, how do we organize? Well, we're not just continuing to do the same marches, right? We march for Laquan. We march for all these different individuals who we, and it's like we're continuing to do it. And this is not modern day what we just doing. This goes back from history. This is what we've been doing. Our people are continuing to be gunned down or killed by police, and we are continuing to just say, hey, let's have a protest, let's have a march, but we don't have an action always behind it. It comes off as if it's just a huge show sometimes. And we got to start putting action behind what we're doing. We're not just coming out here to smile and take pictures for a camera. We coming out here because we want to stand on the police and really hold them accountable. So that goes back to my policy and the laws of what can we put in place to do that. And then we organize and get groups of people to get behind that and say, this is what we're going to do and this is what we're not going to take. And so it's just so many different ways we can go about this. We can just say, skip all of it and say, look, we don't want the police in our communities no more. We're going to govern our own communities and they can't step foot into our communities. So it's a lot of ways we can take this, but them are some of my ways that I look at it as, and I think it's good to march and to protest for great causes, but at the same time, it has to make sense. It has to bring results. We can't just keep on going through a history of the same stuff and nothing is changing in between there. So we just got to find a way to get more results instead of all of the other things that we see sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing too that, you know, no one talks about the post-traumatic stress syndrome that occurs from this. You know, that you can't have something like this happen and not be addressed. You know, so everything you're saying, brother, I echo what Joseph is saying, that one more good old march, one more good old sit-in, one more trying to call the media to come gather attention. It's not enough. There has to, you know.
Telling the media what we telling the media what we about to do. That's how much of a show it has become. It's not. We telling everybody what we're about to do. It has to be some real live or organizing. And I think the last piece I'll add with that is that something that I think needs to be equal around the board, no matter if you're North or South, but especially for our people, for Black people, for brown people, whatever you want to say, for our people who are traumatized the most by this stuff. Children used to grow up and want to be the police. Children now see the police and I cry, and they are scared because they seen the police treat their parents like straight up animal crap. And they see the reaction that some police have. Not all police are bad, but you have a nice majority of police that are disrespecting our communities, and they have it gives a bad outlook on that. So one thing I propose for every one of the 50 wards in Chicago is that they put a mental health facility in each one of those 50 wards. We can create dollars for what we want to create them for, but we really have to create dollars to support people. And the way you're going to do that is helping the trauma and the mental health part of this, because most of our people, including myself, is traumatized because of things that I grew up with and dealing with in my life and things that I continue to deal with, even going onto the streets every day. You just don't know. And we have to continue to thank God for even living. But to my point, we need mental facilities in every one of the 50 wards to really help our people out and help get them the resources that they need so they can let it out some type of way.
Absolutely. I mean, for those that don't know, Chicago shut down a lot of the mental facilities, especially in the communities that needed them the most. It was it 2 years ago when they addressed that, when they started facilities back. But, you know, I look at it like this, and I've said this before, it was part of the motivation that allowed me to run for alderman, is that if my son, one of my two sons, I have a 20-year-old and an 18-year-old, Jazz and Baraka, if they were shot dead, right, what would I do, right? So I personally, I would lose my mind. It wouldn't even be thought, emotion, because I'm super intense in general, right? And one, I'd want those people in jail, incarcerated immediately. Like these officers that are walking around, the fact that they're not being convicted of murder right now, that right now is an issue. That's something that the president should chime in on. That's something that the governor should chime in on. That's something that the mayor, everyone that's in a position of power, that should be an atrocity right now. Sorry, it was publicized. Sorry, you have to do something, but that's your responsibility. If you have a microphone in front of you, you have to say what you know is right. And that's only the right thing, that these people are immediately incarcerated. I know people that have gone to Cook County Jail for $100 of cannabis, locked up, incarcerated, fighting cases for drugs. So the fact that they're not fighting a case right now based upon on video, you were caught with your knee on a man's neck.
But what's crazy and what's bold to me of the police is that they know that we're in a world where people are quick to pull out their phone. That never stops them though. Like, why is that? Why do they think that they can get away with everything that they do? Any police, like the first example of, police being killed, and we use the media to publicize it, that didn't stop the other ones. Why is that?
Well, and what I want to address though, and what is definitely a real thing, I do want to address, our police officers. My grandfather, Edwin Williams, was a Chicago police officer. My grandfather, William Buford, was a Cook County sheriff. They both served in the military. So in their defense, I want to say, and I see my cousin Evans on. My friend Sean said police don't care because they know that there's no consequence. Absolutely. I mean, it's twofold. One, they have the biggest insurance plan out there. Let me bring it back to dog training, for example. If they release a police canine on you, that dog's not trained to stop. That dog is going to attack because you've done something that has warranted that level of lethal force. So I train guard dogs for a living. When you have the ability to initiate lethal force, you have to be in situations where you're not intoxicated, where you have been trained to operate in the highest stress level possible. And I'm seeing my cousin, Ev Evans, who, thank you for your service, who served in our military. Whether you're a doctor, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a police officer, alderman, anytime you're in a situation where you're going to be confronted with a high level of stress, where one bad decision in a millisecond. I'm just using, and I want you to jump in here, Alderman Candidate Joseph, to echo what I'm saying, whether you're for it or not. But this is what I'm saying is that part of it is, just so we're clear, it's a training issue. I'm not confused by that. It's a training issue because I do it with dogs, right? I have to do it myself. The reason why I walk around North Lawndale and I'm stopped every year at least 3 times. I can give you story after story of being stopped. When I'm stopped, I'll give you an example. I'm walking down the street, 3 white police officers, they jumped out of their car so fast they had me up against the fence. They pulled my entire jacket up to my neck, trying to see if there was a weapon. As they're doing this, I'm breathing so nice and calm. I promise you, I dropped my eyes low and I said, I'm the alderman. And then they stood there and they froze. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out a card, one of my alderman cards, candidate cards. They snatched it. They looked at it and they ran in their car. I could have done a couple things. They jumped out their car. I could have ran. Bad look. They jumped out their car. I could have fought back. Bad look.
Mm-hmm.
They jumped out of their car. I could have pulled my concealed carry. Bad look. Because I didn't know who they were. They didn't identify who they were. And I mean, I'm assuming they were police officers because when I ran into the street as they're pulling off, I saw that it was an unmarked detective car. But I trained myself. I trained my sons. We go through scenario training. that's the thing that America doesn't know and understand, that as a black male in America, you must go through these scenario training skills.
Mm-hmm.
As a human, you have to go through these scenario training skills depending upon what you're doing in your world. Now, if you live in North Lawndale or Inglewood, or if you're living in Kariakor, Kenya, if you're living in areas where there's a high level of that something bad can happen, you should definitely. I tell people everyone should be trained to be able to deal with high stress, intense situations that, in our training, we say a couple things. We say this is going to be painful and it's going to be dangerous. We don't train. If I train a dog, I don't train for recreation. I train a dog to protect you, to save your life. I train a dog to not get hit in the street. I don't train for fun. I don't train for tricks. I mean, I'm not Petco. That's why it's the Wolfkeeper. It's that intense. So when we talk about, we as black folks out there, Alderman Candidate, I'm saying that it really comes down to a lack of training and increased training for our police staff to be trained in a high level of intensity. And two, you're dealing with, they have PTSD because they're putting their lives on the line every day. I think every one of the police officers for their service, and black men in particular have PTSD because they're getting stopped. So, I mean, what do you want to, don't you see that more as a training issue?
Yeah, so you know what? I think you bring up a few good points. I mean, systematically, man, it's a lot that has to be done. And
can you talk louder, brother? I'm trying to catch with my other mic.
I'm sorry. So to my point, training does play a part, right? And I think on both ends. One, I think you talk about a lot of good points there, right? So again, all police aren't bad, but I would tell you there are a nice majority of police that really just don't care and they can't relate to the communities that they are working in. But also, police are overworked. We have police that are continuing to see crimes happen, shots being fired. They're seeing probably dead babies. They're seeing everything that they can see, and they're being traumatized, and they're not getting the support services that they need within the department. Instead of them getting the support services, they say, no, you're about to do another shift, and you're going to go out there and do it again. So they might have just got out of a situation that where they was getting shot at. But now they're doing the overtime. A situation like that just may have came close to occurring again, or maybe not even be that situation, and their guns may already be drawing out on somebody because they just went through something else prior to that. So you have to look at the mental part of it, even in the police department. How do we get them the psychiatric help that they need and give them the services and not overwork them where they pressed? But also, how do we give them the proper training? And if you ask me, the entire Chicago Police Department and probably every police department around the United States need to just be shut down and started completely over. Because as they are coming in through these trainings, they are not getting the due diligence of actually learning how to serve and protect communities. They are more coming in and they are learning how to target. If you see tattoos and dreads and hoodies, and you look for certain things, and you look for a guy who just got his hands in his pocket, and they look for certain things to pinpoint and say, we're going to attack these people. And half the time when they do that, that person isn't doing anything. And that's how we continue to see the crazy stuff that we're seeing, like how we're seeing right down there in Minneapolis. But also I would add to the piece of community training, because no one is teaching our young people, no one is teaching any of our people, how do we really deal with police? When we again approached by police in our communities, is the first thing we should do is run, so then they can shoot us in the back and say we thought they had a gun, knowing damn well we didn't have a gun. They're gonna find a cell phone on you afterwards. So do we run from them all the time? Do we decide that that's the perfect time, as me and one of my brother David was talking about earlier? Do we decide that is that a perfect time for you to get tough with the police and say, I'm gonna be tough now, and start screaming at you, saying get your effing hands off of me and talk crazy to you and escalate the situation? When is the right and wrong times, right? And how do we really train community starting in grammar schools? Because this don't need to just be no fake program that they keep putting millions of dollars into, but it never does anything for us. Something that starts in the grammar schools of how do our children deal with police? How do we all relate with the police and what are some actions that really should be taken if you're being stopped by putting your hands up. Although we see videos when people have their hands up and they still get shot. But how do we take these? How do we take something whereas we can preserve a little bit more life when dealing with the police in our communities and how they are? So a lot of it, I think we got to come right at the police with no doubt about it. With no doubt about it.
Alderman Candidate, I would just want to chime in. Sean Hoagland in New York said, Toriano Sanzoni, you have to also understand it's not just training, it's the system itself and how law enforcement wants on the streets. They purposely enlist people who are malleable or are willing to sacrifice their own moral compass in trade for authority. Look, not all cops are bad for sure. I would never want their job, but that is exactly why it requires a higher caliber of citizen to do that job. I mean, Sean Hoagland, thank you for writing that. I totally agree. I mean, it's a tough job. I mean, every day you're waking up, you're putting your life on the line. I want to address too, Alderman Candidate Joseph. You said that they're overworked. Chicago, in particular, has the highest police overtime in the country. We spend $150 million a year in police overtime, so that's in addition to their salaries. We currently, it's an intense job that you have to be trained to be able to recognize, not to stop me just because I have locks and I'm walking through North Lawndale. Don't stop me just because I'm driving a Lexus or a BMW and you think I might be a drug dealer. Don't stop me for any of the different reasons, and don't necessarily stop that guy. You can't judge a cover of a book. Right, you can't judge a book by its cover, and that's what happens so quite often, which requires, I'm agreeing with Sean that it requires a higher caliber of a citizen to do that job because it's a very intense job because you have a weapon of mass destruction that can cause lethal force. You have the authority to do so. So people, there's a default fear factor built into a person when you're stopped. But I mean, as a black male, you can be totally all good. If you see a police car behind you, you instantly start getting nervous. It's systematic. It's so far beyond. We can talk about this forever. It goes deeper than just today. I mean, I'm 45 years old. I mean, go ahead.
No. I just completely agree with you. Definitely systematic, and that's one of the main reasons why I say it have to be policy or some laws put in place to help change the way the system works, or we have to find a way to do something that probably hasn't happened at all yet, and that's actually breaking down the system and rebuilding a system that's actually for people, rebuilding a new system. Because if you ask me about the Chicago Police Department, you can give training, you can do as much as you want to do, and I pray and hope that all of that would hopefully one day help our communities. But no matter how much of that you do, the good, you're always going to have to. I just think it needs to start completely over. I think it needs to be like that for CPS when it comes to our schools.
From the
I think it
top,
needs to be like that for CPD. I think it needs to be on every level. It just needs to completely start over. We need to bring in new people with fresh new training, give them a chance to be the police and be what a police is supposed to be, and building community relationships and working our way from the bottom back up to the top and having somebody to help run the entire thing. But with us just trying to continue to put Band-Aid effects on things, it just does nothing for us. That's all we're doing is just continuing to put a Band-Aid on it. And again, we see that with CPS too.
Well, in Candidate Alderman, I want to say then I'll challenge you right here on air then for us to work together to do something about it, because part of the issue, and I can say this firsthand, I can't tell you why exactly I ran for alderman or why you ran. I just knew that when situations come like this, I had to be in a position to do something about it. So I know that's why you ran. That's why I ran, because we love our communities that much. We wanted to be part of the people that were in power. So when something like this happened, we can make a phone call and say, hey, that's not right. This actions need to state. We didn't become aldermen, but we are definitely statesmen. We definitely are activists. And part of the issue that it's not going to stop until people start losing money because people are getting killed, particularly in our community. So here's the deal.
We also have to get our communities together, united, so that we are taken seriously. It's a lot of crime, there's a lot of shootings, of killing within our own, and we're killing each other. That a lot of people, when we do get out there and try to voice our opinions and protest or whatever it is, we're not taken seriously because a lot of our crimes are happening amongst ourselves. So how do we start from there, where we get our kids to love each other, from older people to unite as a whole, so that we are solid.
I agree.
Well,
I agree.
and two, here's the deal. People have to not be selfish and just think about themselves, because at the end of the day, someone has to organize the proper protest. Someone has to organize the proper sit-in. A lot of people aren't aware that Martin Luther King had an entire team. Reverend James Bevel was an organizer for Dr. King. He's the one that convinced Dr. King to come to Chicago. Reverend James Bevel organized the Million Man March before he died. So those things those people think nonprofit, those things are companies. It's not just a matter of just saying that someone has to take the time to organize that. So, for example, for an economic level, I've always said, people will protest on Miracle Mile. I would tell people, why protest on Miracle Mile? People could protest in Little Village. Little Village generates the most sales tax in the entire state, only second to Miracle Mile. You want to hurt someone's pocketbooks? Go shut down Little Village. Or don't black folks stop buying Nikes, stop buying clothing. That stop supporting, disrupt the financial institution. There are things that you can do that will affect the money, and it will only stop when someone money stops and someone's like, okay, that's not cool. I don't want that person. I don't want that ever to happen again because it cost me that much. It's just like a parent that's saying, you just cost me $13,000 or $15,000 because you had a DUI. Until you disrupt the finances, then that's the only way you're going to address. Wait, I want to chime in again. Sean Hoagland's on fire here. He said, we both live in Minneapolis, brother. It ain't Chicago or New York there. There's another level of intensity. The cop was simply racist. I understand how cops have to quickly assess the situation and must be careful, but that officer clearly had this man subdued and continued to administer the knee choke. I know the governor makes an example of this cop with life imprisonment. I hope the governor makes an example of this cop with life imprisonment. That little jelly roll that just stood there and watched should be locked up too. Absolutely. Anyone that sat there and watched a human being, everyone that was around.
I was thinking that too, yeah.
Even us right now, that's part of the issue. That's part of the issue, that we have to stop being passive. We have to stop being afraid and being. This is a revolution, and revolutions don't just happen accidental. You just don't. You don't. It's not. There's no such thing as a gentle, kind, warm, fuzzy revolution. Martin Luther King spent a lot of time incarcerated. Gandhi spent a lot of time incarcerated. Right? This is not going to be fun and fuzzy and touchy and feely and something to write home about. This is going to be a war. America, we are a warmonger state. We create war all around the world, every day. The problem is, in the black community, we're fighting the wrong enemy. We shoot and kill each other, right? Instead of saying, hey, you know what? I'm sick and tired of being tired. And the thing that's plaguing is that there is not one true leader in charge, which goes back to the dog culture. I can always bring it back to dog culture, because you need a leader. You need a pack leader that's going to say, this is what we're doing. Simple as that. Denise just said, the fucking Phil, people could not even sacrifice. I've completely divested since, Kaepernick. That's why people was like, This guy took a knee and destroyed his career because he wanted. That was his way of protesting, but it has to be something much bigger and more intense. And it really comes down to finances. Someone has to really organize a financial protest, and that's people stop buying. Like, stop going to Walmart. Damn it, people spend so much time spending their money in Walmart. Stop going to Foot Locker, right? Stop buying stuff. Disrupt the pocketbooks of America, especially right now, because everyone's the COVID. I mean, that's the thing that makes me super sad, is that in the middle of all this, in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of 100,000 Americans that have died, you still have someone clearly has not got the message. This person that put his knee on a man's neck clearly does not care about the pandemic. He clearly is not showing. I mean, no one had a mask on. Why didn't the cops didn't have masks on? They didn't have. They just stood there, grabbed this guy, and put their knee on his neck. Clearly, and that's the thing that's even more disturbing, because clearly the thought of like the most normal people, it's a pandemic. This is one of the worst times in the history of America. If you don't have a sensitive heart right now, you deserve to get corona. If you're not, that means that you have not learned the lesson of thinking that you are an infinite being, that you are someone that cannot die, right? The best advice I heard someone say, your only job this summer is to stay alive. That black man, his only job was to stay alive, and he didn't stay alive because he was dying. And it can happen to any one of us. Between corona, between police officers, between gangs, between drugs, between random drive-bys. If you live in certain places in this America, every one of those is a possibility, and that's where we have to make impact and do something today versus even talking about it. That's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, brother, I'm saying that you and it has to be organized financially. If there's not some type of financial, that's the only way that there's going to be any kind of real thing happen anyway. It has to, in my opinion, it has to happen financially. Wait, Denise just said black men should stop playing in the NFL. Hey, that would hurt some people financially. If people said, that's a great point, Denise. If they said, hey, you know what? Don't worry about us going back for Corona. We're going to take the next year off. There's your protest.
I would love to see that.
there's your protest. I won't be your sponsor anymore. I mean, because there's tons of guys that love to do things anonymous. But then Reverend Al Sharpton, get off MSNBC, walk away. Tell them I'm not going to be on there anymore. Any person that is on the Tamron Hall, step off. Say, hey, I'm not messing with you all. This is terrible. Go ahead and COVID already has shut the world down. Go ahead and shut the world completely down. Stop buying stuff. Don't buy nothing. Women, stop buying hair. Stop going to these salons. I pass by the salon, not the salon, but the little beauty supply store. There's a line outside. It's not black owned, right? Stop buying hair. Stop. Everyone's in a rush to go get their. I can't wait to June 1st to go give this person all my money. Do your stuff. Your hair. Do it yourself. Right. Shut everything down. Don't pay for nothing. Totally be independent. Don't let that be in vain. That's what I'm saying.
I agree.
And I mean, the other tragedy is that people aren't going to know what to actually protest for. Like you were saying earlier, brother, about people out there just trying to get on TV and get everything else. I definitely don't need to do this, and you don't either. You have 5 kids.
You hear me?
You're busy. You don't need to do anything else. You're already busy, right? I have 2 kids. I have 2 college kids and a business. I destroyed my entire business, right? I lost my girlfriend, right? I lost a lot of money. I got a lot of debt trying to help North Lawndale because it hurt. When I came back here in 2015, after coming back from Mallorca, Spain, it looked worse, and it continues to be worse, and that's totally not cool, 100% unacceptable.
I agree. You know what? And just piggybacking on like Chanel with her just like saying just the simple fact of really community coming together, right? And even when I think of what that looks like, that's not just community. These public officials that represent us for our communities, that involves them too. We have the power. We just have to exercise the power that we have and quit letting these elected officials who don't represent us for real continue to stay in office, and we continue to allow so much. We allow too much. And we have to come to a part where we say we're not just marching for Fox News, we're not just marching for the TV and for us to take some pictures. We marching and we doing this stuff because we really want to make a real change. And behind that march, there's an entire agenda that we expect to be approved behind that march. Not the stuff that you out here looking at right now. I don't condone any of that. But on the level of coming together, elected officials have to be held accountable as well. And first of all, on the state, on the county, and on the city level, black people running the whole damn thing. So how we got all these black people in position, but ain't none of the black people fighting for black issues? Ain't nobody
Dude, we
fighting
so
for black
powerful.
people.
Yeah, we so powerful. It's I don't understand why we not running the world, period. Like if we could just all get together, we too strong for this tonight.
What does a protest look like when you have a march with all of your elected officials that's black standing with their black communities behind them and everybody coming out to really do some stuff for real together? Now, you don't see that, but what does that really look like? These same people that's elected officials can put policy in place, can put laws in place. They got power to do things, so they put the power behind the people's voice. But instead, it's been the opposite. They're not putting the power behind the people's voice. They're holding their power only for themselves and only to generate wealth and to continue to make it look like they're a one-man show and they're doing it by themselves. And that's why I do not believe in elected officials who play that type of game. They need to be out of office and voted out. And every dog does have his day. And that's why you see all of these federal investigations going on right now. And I hope the feds take every last one of them black politicians that ain't doing right by our community.
Well, and that goes back to where, I mean, it's up to, and you don't have to be an elected official to do something. Because here's, I mean, just even if you're watching this, thank you for watching. Thank Africa for just coming into the room. PD said, how would they charge a brown guy who drove the getaway car? How would they charge a guy who overheard the plan, or the guy that watched his buddy do it and didn't turn him in? Obstruction and accessory to murder. I mean, I'm going to add to what PD just said. With this situation with George Floyd, we are all an accomplice to murder if something major doesn't happen about this. I mean, enough's enough. I mean, I can't even. My eyes hurt so bad. I can't. I'm got sunglasses on, not because I'm trying to be cool, but it literally. I was up 1 o'clock in the morning, just like, man, this is really fucked up. This is really like the worst. I mean, in the middle of a pandemic, and it's like, well, it's unrealistic that these things would not be happening regardless of the pandemic. And it's like, I don't support that. I think that if you're doing something crazy now while this is happening, right, then shame on you, and that there should be the opposite of that evil. There should be a positivity to combat that and say, no, if you do this, we're going to do this, because if not, if you don't do anything now for George Floyd, if you don't do anything, because the list keeps going on and on and on and on. We can name 20 different popular black people that have been murdered. But it's not even just black. It's the brown too. It's not a race thing. It's a human thing, right? Not doing anything at all is the wrong thing as an ambassador to humanity, right? Dog. That's just going back to dog training. Dogs don't see color. Dogs know energy, right? The energy is wrong. And I've been saying this back in March. Martial law is coming. You're not going to be able to stop it, because last night what I saw in Minneapolis, when you have the police officers using excessive force against civilians trying to maintain them, and you got riot gear out. I don't know what you call when there's riot gear. To me, that's martial law. And if you don't think that there's not going to be a riot this summer, if you don't think that something terribly wrong, is going to get worse. I mean, because how much worse can it get than to see that video yesterday? You all know what I'm saying? Like how much more bad do you really need to see before you're not even in a situation to change, and then you're just operating in just pure anarchy and mayhem. And we have so many examples of that. I want to read what Sean Hoagland just said. He's on fire in New York. The problem is that these politicians are affluent. Malcolm X had it right. At current time, this fight is race-based, brown versus white. But he is right that in the end, it will be no longer about color. It will be about the haves and the have-nots. At a certain level in American politics, everyone sells out regardless of the color. Absolutely. I mean, and we're getting to that point now, Sean. I thank you for saying that. It's gonna come. I mean, if you can't see it and you're not aware of like what's happening with this pandemic. I mean, ultimately, either you're gonna get the virus or you're not gonna get the virus. Either you're gonna get the virus and survive, or you're gonna get the virus and you're gonna die. Life after the virus. You're gonna either make tons of money from it because you were selling PPE for gouging prices. Either you were selling security, or you were a doctor. You came up. There's going to be people that made a whole bunch of money. There's going to be people that are going to say, you know what? I haven't had a paycheck since March 17th, and now it's going on 6 months, 7 months. There's going to be people that are going to go completely broke. My one friend shut down their business. I know at least 3 people that have shut down their businesses. I mean, we're fighting to stay open and alive. It's like, it is not easy as a small business owner out there. I mean, but the fact that the LA Lakers can get $10 million in money, right, from this economic stimulus bailout, and then turn around and say, "Oh, my bad. I don't know how we got that. I don't know who filed that. Our bad. We'll send it back." Who do you send $10 million back in the government? You mean, oh, hey, I'm returning this money. Can you make sure you get it back? Right? How does that even go down? Right? Number one. Number two, the money that's being spent, that $350 billion that was distributed in 2 weeks, and they went on air and they said that if you were awarded anything under $1 million, they don't even have the manpower to see if it was fraudulent, right? So the government has proven that if in times of crisis, they can generate the money because they distributed $350 billion. But wasn't it worth $350 billion before we got to this point, right? In education and to taking places, I can just speak of North Lawndale because there's a North Lawndale everywhere in the world, but just to take a place like North Lawndale by itself, right, that has an education level of 9th grade, average yearly income $13,000 a year, right, plagued with single mothers, right? I personally know at least 5 people murdered last year. Wasn't it worth $350 billion to rebuild the infrastructures of your true inner city alone? Yes, but here's the problem. You have to want to change that, and change does not come without some real kind of pain. Change does not come without some kind of real conflict. It's not going to look pretty. It's not going to look easy. It's going to be very, very super duper intense for sure. Brother Joseph, you want to? I thank you. I mean, I thank you for your time on this. We're plowing through 52 minutes of just intensity. Man, you want to add anything there?
Man, not really, man. I think you guys are saying it all. Everybody's feeling really the same way about these situations, and I'm listening to everything, and I'm honored to be on your show today. I'm glad that you guys invited me to be on with you to have this type of conversation, because it is a much needed conversation, and I hope that people can take what we're talking about and maybe they can go where they are and try to help make a start to put things in place or continue to get more like-minded people together. But I'm just honored to have this opportunity, and I really appreciate being on the show with you today. And with that being said, really, I'm out here and I'm going to continue to work until I just can't do it no more. But I do got to make sure I do self-care myself if I can sometime. And and I just enjoy the conversation today because we talking about a lot of stuff that people don't want to talk about. I appreciate being a part of that. So just thank you again for having me today.
Can you tell us more about your nonprofit, where we can find you, how we can get in contact, get our boys involved?
Yeah. No, most definitely. And also the good thing about the Fathers Club, a lot of people think it's always the boys, right? We got the boys and the girls. We even do a father and daughter dance where the
Nice.
fathers escort these young ladies to this nice top of the class dinner and all of that type of good stuff. So it goes both sides because we know all children really need either their father in their life or a good male model, no matter what. Now, with that part of it, you guys can reach us and find us on Facebook all the time. We are on Facebook at Mr. Dad's Fathers Club, and that's Dad. So that's Mr. DADS, Mr. Dad's Fathers Club on Facebook. You can find us under that same name on Instagram, or you can just type in your Google box there and type in Mr. Dad's Fathers Club, and for sure you guys will be able to get into contact with us. I think my number is public, so you guys can call me right up if you got any questions about anything. And also you can follow me on Facebook at Joseph Williams. As simple as that, Joseph Williams. And then if you put in your search box Joseph Williams and you can't find me, put Mr. Dad's Fathers Club right next to Joseph Williams. And for sure you'll be able to find me.
We got you.
And Alderman Candidate, Joseph, please, we want you back. Next time we bring you back, we're gonna have all the video properly set up. Chanel's gonna rebook you right away, and it was super fabulous. But you and I, we need to talk later. We got to have a scheduled conversation because that's just it too. If you don't do something, I'm charging myself with doing something. This cannot go unchecked. Absolutely not, because this is the only one in the beginning.
I agree 100% with it.
And if you don't help now, the life you save might be your own. It might be your brother, it might be your mother, it might be your father, it might be your sister, because it won't have anything to do with race. It will have to do with economic status, right? So you might as well strap up and get ready to understand how to survive in this new era. This is not something that's just going to go mysteriously go away. Yesterday is gone. It's over, right? This is the new now, and I want people to be ready. All right. Thank everyone that was on here that came through. Thank everyone that was listening. Sorry, I was trying to bring some people on through the Facebook dual screen, but we're going to figure it out next time. So Tammy, I'll bring you in next time. Joseph, we're going to get you in next time. But please, thank you. Download the app Podbean Live. You're going to be able to find this all over the internet on SoundCloud and CD Baby and all the other beautiful platforms. Please reshare this on Facebook. Tune in. Tell people every day at 11 a.m. Toriano, the Wolfkeeper, with this show. I'm always bringing it back to dog training too, because it all comes down to leadership. I tell people when their dogs are out of control, your dog is out of control because they're looking for a follower, right? But they can't follow if you can't lead, right? Same thing with the world. Right now, we don't have a leader, so people can't follow. There's no leader. We need a leader, and that leader's you. Thank you all. Peace and love. Till tomorrow, we're gonna have my amazing friend Lala in studio, hopefully, and we're gonna talk about a lot of amazing things. And on Friday, we're gonna have Sexy Lexi, the Frenchie Bulldog, in here. So stay tuned, stay alert, stay alive.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you for being on.